Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today our topic is about the memory, right? Memory is basically connected with the brain. So first we will study the anatomy of brain a little bit. Only that parts of, in not that much in detail, but those aspects which are actually connected with the language. We will focusing on that, but first we will have a brief kind of discussion of brain. Now, we know that our central nervous system, that is the most important part in our whole body. Other, systems are also there in being. All them actually are dependent on the central nervous system. And in central nervous system, our brain is the most complicated and highly developed, organ. And brain is basically, it is said that it is composed of, its weight is 3 pounds. When you reach to the age of 40, 50, it becomes 5 pounds. And most of its portion is made of water and fats. And whatever, we mediate in our life, each and everything, is controlled by our brain. It is a complex organ and it is covered basically by a liquid called central spinal fluid. Now, this brain is then divided into three main parts. There are other parts also, but key parts. One is cerebral cortex, uh, forebrain, and then brainstem, which is actually consists of midbrain and hindbrain, and third is cerebellum. Cerebellum. Now we will discuss. We will discuss the cerebral cortex later on. First, we discuss the last two parts of the brain because now that part is basically connected with our language. Uh, and our main topic, because we are, as a linguist, we will have to discuss only those things, those aspects of those parts of brain which are connected with language faculty, right? With language, in one way or another. Now, so the second part of brain, that is what we call brain stem, that is further divided into midbrain and hindbrain. Now, it's look like a stem of brush. It is made of mid, as I said, mid and hindbrain. And it is actually located, it is the upper part of our brain, upper part. Now, it is responsible for sending and receiving the information. And you can say that brain stem is that part which actually connect, through which the, right and left hemispheres are, they are connected. Now, below that, we see medulla oblongata, which actually performs several kind of functions, such as breathing. It also control bloods of human beings and connected with the voluntary and vital function. The other part of the brain is pons, that is involved in sensory analysis. Sensory analysis, and it is also said that it is connected with our sleep and consciousness. Now, cerebellum is actually connected with our movements and coordination. Now, hypothalamus is actually controlling the homeostasis. Homeostasis is the process. It is a kind of balance. A balance is maintained in a human body as of homeostasis. It actually looks to the needs of the body and its satisfaction. A balance is created in our body. There are, we see different things which are kept in balance in our body, and the function is being performed by these hypothalamus. So far thalamus is concerned, it is also called a central panel. Central panel for what? For the motor and sensory functions. Motor function and sensory functions are by controlled by thalamus. Now we come to the cerebral cortex, which is, I mean, our main focus, and because it is connected with our language. Now, it is also called gray area. Why gray area of brain? Because it lacks insulation. Lacks of insulation result in what? It color is changed. While the other part of the brain, you see they are white. Now, it is said that it is 1.5 or to 5 millimeter thick, and it is the upper part of our brain. Now, it is a highly developed part of brain which involves in thinking, perception, production, understanding of the language. It is also involved in intelligence. It is considered to be connected with the personality, intelligence, personality, motor function, planning and organization, touch, sensation, processing sensory information, language information processing, and it is said that it is consists of from 40 to 60 billion neuron. Now, it is covered by cerebrum and cortex, which are the uppermost part of brain. Now, it is basically, there are four divisions of lobes. The first one is called the parietal lobe. Now, parietal lobe is considered to be connected with the sensory information. I mean, it is a control the sensation, sensory information, by which means, I mean, our touch, our smell, our taste, our hearing, these are being controlled by the parietal lobe. Frontal lobe, that actually also performs some vital functions. It controls you movement of the body, decision making, problem solving. It also helps in planning. Now, frontal lobe is then basically divided into right and left. Right frontal lobe and left frontal lobe. Right frontal lobe actually controls the left part of the body, and left frontal lobe controls the right side of the body. And third lobe is what we call occipital. That is basically connected with vision. Eyes, our visions are basically controlled by this lobe. And now the visual informations, they are actually then sent to the parietal lobe and the temporal lobe. The last lobe is called the temporal lobe. Now, it is believed to be connected with memory, hearing, and language. So these are, I mean, the parts which are connected with the cerebral cortex. Now, any disorder uh, uh, in the cerebral cortex, damage or death of cell in cerebral cortex result in several disorders. One of such kind of disorder is called apraxia. Apraxia is the inability to cooperate to operate certain motor function, like you are walking. Now, people suffering from this kind of disease, they have problem in walking, and apraxia. Now, another disorder is called agraphia. Agraphia. Agraphia is basically connected with the writing problem. When you cannot write properly, you have problem. I mean, when that is a motor disease. The first one that I mentioned, apraxia or agraphia, they are the motor disease, because in one you have the problem in walking, and another you have the problem in writing. Now, two other disorder which are usually connected with language, that is, one is called Broca's aphasia, another is Wernicke aphasia. Now, about aphasia, we know that aphasia is the loss of language because of brain damage. And it can be the death, but in most cases, because of incident. When incident, God forbid, if somebody have problem, I mean, have brain injury specifically, like the frontal lobe, that individual has the chances to have brocaiphasia. He will be having problem in speech. He will not be able to speak properly. Uh, he will understand comprehension. He will not be having any problem in understanding other people, but when it comes to produce language, he will be having a problem. When damage happens to the frontal lobe, it can result in brocaiphasia. Now another disorder that I mentioned, that was actually Wernicke aphasia. Wernicke aphasia, when damage happens to the temporal lobe. Now, over here, an individual will be having problem in comprehension. His language is going to be very fine. He will not be having any problem in in speech, but he will be problem in understanding other people. So, if you compare these two, Broca aphasia and the Wernicke aphasia, then I would say that Wernicke aphasia is more dangerous, because I mean, uh, an individual, if an individual is in front of you and you are trying to say something to him, to convey something, and he is not able to comprehend you, it becomes a very difficult. And the one who is having a problem in language, but he can understand for you comparatively, that individual is easier to handle. So anyway, that was something a little bit about the brain anatomy. Uh, Now we already, discussed the lateralization. We know that lateralization of brain started with before birth, and it continues up till puberty age. So lateralization, we know the compartmentalization of brain. When brain different parts are divided in such a way that they should perform some specific function. That is what we call lateralization. And now this thing is also connected with the critical period hypothesis that we discussed, right? So this was a little bit about the anatomy of brain. Now, and now it is connected with language. In language, we know that brain and language are connected at several levels. Now it is connected at the sensory, motor level, and cognitive level. So and now uh, like language, when we talk about memory, so memory, actually you can define that memory is what? Memory is the power of human being to recall previous experiences. Whatever have you done in the past, what happens to you, what you heard, saw in your life, that is written in your mind. So memory is basically what? Memory is the encoding of sensory information, converting them into some chemical information, which are then stored in your mind and then retrieved when it is needed, right? So basically memory is what? Encoding, storing, and retrieval of information, and the power of an individual to recall past experiences. Now, memory is then further divided into three categories. One is sensory memory, another is short-term memory, and the last one is long-term memory. Sensory memory is actually at the at our sensory level, and we know that human beings have five senses. One is taste, another is touch, visual, hair, and I just forgot, but we have five five senses we have. So that is the sensory. It is now like it acts like buffer. If you look at sensory, so sensory memory is a very short if compared with the short-term memory and long-term memory. In short-term memory, we know that it is very short, its capacity is very short, but sensory is even shorter than this one. It acts like buffer for stimuli recovered through the five senses. Now, there are, like the images, which actually are retained accurately, but for a very short period of time. Like if it is I mean, when we see through our eyes, these are images. These images are stored accurately, but for very shorter period of time. Not, I mean, then it directly goes to your what? To your short-term memory. Now, memory at your senses level is very, very short. Now, these uh, sensory memory is further divided into the iconic memory, which is basically connected with our visual images. And another is echoic memory. That is our auditory, right? Our hearing. Haptic memory is connected with our touch. Basically, these three. So far, taste and smell are concerned, it has nothing to do with the language. Three, our senses are closely connected, but most importantly, the two. One is visual, another is hearing, though touch is also involved. And when these three are involved in any activity, it means that your processing, I mean, information processing process becomes very quick. In other way, I can say that you are taking your uh, uh, information from short-term memory into long-term memory quickly when these three senses are involved. When one sense is involved, the chances are that you will not be able to take the information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory as quickly as when the three, I mean, senses are involved. So, I mean, sensory memory is actually divided into iconic, echoic, haptic, haptic. Iconic, iconic, that is visual. And the auditory was echoic, echoic, echoic memory. Echoic memory with auditory. Uh, the first one, iconic, is visual. Haptic is with your touch. The other two, one is olfactory, that is connected with your smell, and gustatory, that is connected with your taste. So this is the first kind of memory, I mean sensory memory. As I said, that it is a very short, it is like a buffer for a stimuli received through your senses, a very, very short. Now, then we have the short-term memory. Short-term memory, it is slightly less, I mean, passing than the sensory memory, but still vanish after a few minutes. During the like right now I am delivering a lecture. Now whatever I am recalling, let's suppose there is a list which I have to I mean recall. Over here I am taking help from the short-term memory, and we know short-term memory is short. Short-term memory doesn't have that much capacity. Another important thing is that in short-term memory is conscious. It is not unconscious. And one another thing, I mean, if information are stored in short-term memory, it is in word order. Exact, I mean, form and content, the same. That is why, I mean, like memorization. People memorize Holy Quran. That actually, when they recall that, they take helps from their short-term memory. Their short-term memory is very, very strong. Like Hafiz, we know Hafiz people, those people who, I mean, learn Quran by heart. These people, their short-term memory is very hot. I mean, very strong and fast. Because now, as we know that whatever you use, that is human. I mean, it is in nature in human body. Any part which is used more and more, we see that its capacity increase with the passage of time. So these people we know mostly they use what their short-term memory. That is the reason that they are very good when they recall things. And short-term memory, again, I say that it is very short and its capacity is very short. It is conscious. And another thing is that the informations are stored in short-term memory in a form of word order. Exact sentence, content and form, you find the same. And it is highly selective. It is not, I mean, let's suppose in if it is connected with visual. So in short-term memory, all the information is not, uh, collected. It is highly selective. It picks up some information and leave the other side, right? It is highly selective. Now, if we come, so over here, how the information, the memory which is there in the short-term memory is taken from short-term memory into long-term memory, right? So from short-term memory into long-term memory, we actually discussed that it is all about three factors are involved in it. One is encoding. This is if I'm not wrong, we discussed this one. Encoding. Encoding is what? When passing of information from short-term memory to your long-term memory, right? Encoding of information from short-term memory into your long-term memory. And over here, they say that three things play a vital role. Three factors contribute to taking information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. One is situation, another is individual, and third is activity level. Activity level means, if one activity involved, one sense involved, less chances. But if three, as I already mentioned, senses involved, like as I said, your eye, your hearing, and your touch, now that is connected with language. We are talking about language. So in language, if these three are involved, so it means that you have more chances to take information from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. Individual is also, his intelligence is important. We know God has gifted people with different abilities. Some people are genius and some people, dull. And so that is, the God gifted phenomena. Now, situation also matters in what kind of situations you are. If situation is also, again, I would say that that is connected with uh, your activity level. A situation also matters. So these three actually helps in what? In taking information from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. The same. Now, then these information are stored in long-term memory, and in storage, these three factors also play a vital role. Situation, individual, and activity level. Now, things are stored. Now, so far storage is concerned, in long-term memory, informations are stored. But keep in mind, we are coming over. Okay, first let me finish with the process. That in three stages, information are taken from short-term memory into long-term. One is the storage, which I already discussed, encoding, then storage, and after that we have the retrieval of the information which is stored in our memory, and when we want to take it back from the long-term memory into short-term memory. Over here, this process we call retrieval, and it is actually the opposite of encoding, right? So now over here, let me make it clear that as I said, in short-term memory is conscious, it is not unconscious, and things are highly selective. When information from surrounding coming, information from the surrounding input, that is made into a shorter, it may be carry a lot of information. It is highly selective. Some few informations are picked up and then they are taken into your short-term memory. Not all the information goes into your short-term memory. And as I said, that this is information when goes into the long-term memory, and long-term memory they are stored. Now, when we try to retrieve the information, we try to recall what happened with us in the past, or here in long-term memory, we may not be able to retrieve all the information which is stored over there, because long-term memory capacity is very huge. Its duration is very long. Another thing is, it is both conscious and unconscious. It is further divided into conscious memory and unconscious memory. Now, the memory which is in your conscious level, at long-term memory, if you try to recall that, it would be easy, but the unconscious one, you will be having some problem. I mean, the information which is stored in long-term memory sometimes may not be, recall, uh, take back from the long-term to short-term memory, because that is not in your conscious level. It is in unconscious level. I mean, that is, and then I would say that this long-term memory is then further divided into different kind of memory. One is explicit memory. Explicit memory, I mean, you have information, you have knowledge, but you cannot explain it. Explain. That is what we call explicit knowledge. Like, I mean, I eat, right? But how that food is digested, I cannot explain. I am able to walk, but I cannot explain that how my body, what is the coordination of my muscle and how my mind control my muscle to keep me balanced, not be falling down. That is not in my control. So explicit memory, implicit memory. This is what we call implicit memory. There is another kind of memory which we call explicit memory. Explicit memory, which you can explain. I mean, if somebody asks you that how it happens, so you can explain the whole circle, the whole phases, the whole cycle you can put in front of him. You can elaborate him. You can explain each and every step, aspect of that thing. That is called what? The explicit knowledge. Right now, we already know that, I mean, there is another kind of memory which is called the declarative memory. And declarative memory, we have discussed this one. Declarative memory, again, we can say that it is a memory which is, in which the process is control process. You have to take a deliberate efforts to comprehend the things. You take deliberate, your conscious is involved, not your unconscious, right? So that is declarative, and it is very slow. It is very slow. It takes time. It takes time, days, to overcome and to convert that declarative memory into your procedural memory. And what's the fourth kind is procedural memory. When the control memory converted into declarative memory, converted into procedural memory, it means that now you are conscious, your short-term memory is free of that. Now it is a part of your long-term memory, and your long-term memory, specifically that part of your brain is involved, which is unconscious. You automatically, you perform that activity. I gave you the example. Declarative memory, you for the first time you are riding, you are driving a car. You try to how to drive a car, or you are learning how to swim. Now, in initial days, you are declarative memories involved. Instructions are given: gear, gauge, gear, brake, clutch, accelerator, everything which is connected with driving. You are mentioned in front of you, and you know this, one by one the functions. But when you are involved, you cannot coordinate these different functions. Accelerator is there, brake is there, clutch is there, gear is there. So the coordination between these, now that is declarative. With the practice, the more you practice on that, gradually and slowly, that is converted into what? That converted into your procedural memory, right? So procedural memory, declarative memory, explicit knowledge or memory, and implicit memory, we discussed that one. And one is the semantic memory, and another is episodic memory. Episodic memory is said to be connected with your past. What happened to you in the past, when you know the sequence of that events, that is called episodic memory. Now, there is another memory which we call the semantic memory. And we know that there are some people who cannot exactly remember the episode or the event and its logical sequence, but they only focus on what? The gist. These are the people who actually, let's say, they listen to a lecture for 40 minutes, and now when you ask them, they will not mention to you each and everything in detail, they would just only come to the gist, cementing. I mean, the meaning, the idea, the basic idea which is involved over there. So again, then memory is divided into visual memory and the visual and spatial memory and auditory memory, which we already discussed. So I hope you will be able to get the information. I mean about might about the memory and the anatomy of brain. We discuss anatomy of brain, and then we discuss the memory. That memory is what? Memory is the power of an individual to recall past experiences, which involve three stages: encoding, then storage and retrieval. We discuss, and then short-term memory, long-term memory, and sensory memory. We discuss short-term memory, short, limited time, and conscious, right? And selective. Long-term memory, capacity is huge, duration unlimited, and unconscious. It can be conscious, it can be unconscious, and it is uh, the idea is stored over here. Okay, I forgot one thing which I should also mention over here. Now there are different theories. Now memory, the problem of memory, we know that the problem of human being is to forgetfulness, right? We forget things. Three kind of theories are connected with over here. One is stress decay theory. Stress decay theory, that I mean with the natural of time. You know, memory is what? Memory is actually, let's suppose if I saw something, image goes into my sensory, from sensory into short-term, short-term into long-term memory. According to now, it is believed that it actually that information stored in a form of chemical reaction that is stored over there. So now the trace decay theory say that I mean different these chemical reactions happen in our body. So with the passage of time, that information which is stored right now in today in one image of, I mean information, I saw some situation and that's stored in my memory in a form of chemical reaction. That reaction is there at 10 year, 5 year, I mean after some time, after some span of time, because many chemical reactions are happening inside in my brain. So that is all are being affected. The today chemical reaction is affected by the uh, next coming chemical reactions. I mean with the passage of time, which is natural. They say that I mean with the passage of time, memory decayed. This is motivated forgetting theory say that this is a human nature. That I mean this is unconscious. That the old memory are washed out from human mind. And interference theory, this is the third about the forgetfulness. Interference theory, I mean one information is stored and you are putting other informations, as we already discussed. One was the accommodation, another was the assimilation. So in that situation, interference can be at two level, at accommodation level and the assimilation. Assimilation level, when some problem is in the incoming information, your previous knowledge tells you that there are some problem. You try to correct them, that is the assimilation. But if you take that information and the information which is there in your brain in long-term memory, it is not correct. The new information you think that it is the correct one. So when you accommodate, sorry, when you reshuffle your memory, I mean the knowledge which is there in, that is we call accommodation, right? So over here that is connected. So three kind of trace decay theory, motivated forgetting theory, and interference theory, that is all discussed. Now Haman ibn Bo Harman ibn Gos was a man who actually said that I mean our memory, 40% of our memory is forgotten after almost 30 minutes. And after 24 hours, almost 70% of our memory is not there, right? So forgetfulness is natural to human being. This is the dilemma of human life, that you learn something after few years, few months, depending on an individual capability, right? That actually, with the passage of time, that vanish from your mind. 2 days, week, year, 2 year, 10 year, 20 year. I mean, that is depending on the capacity of an individual, that how strong his mental capability is. But One thing is for clear. One thing is clear that it vanish. It vanishes sooner or later from human being. I mean, from all human being. There is no individual on the earth we do not have this problem. Who does not? There is no individual who does not have this problem in this universe. Some retain for longer period of time, and some people forget things very soon. I think it's enough for today, class. See you next time.